I'm Davy. I'm awesome. Welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review styles of movies I love, the alternative B-rated cult-style flicks. And oftentimes when you're doing a series of movies, you get one like this, where you just have to power through it. This sequel came out in 1987, a year after the third one, even though it has nothing to do with the third one, or the second. And it was written and directed by Richard Rothstein, and produced by George Linder, Ken Topolsky, and Henry Klein. Made by Universal Television, and released on NBC, as this was a made-for-TV movie. Ladies and gentlemen, Bates Motel. The movie opens with an over-the-top reporter in the 1960s reporting on the sentencing of Norman Bates after the events of the very first Psycho movie.
And so ends a most terrible and bizarre chapter in the history of this picture book town.
Yeah, right. There'd be 3 more chapters. But then again, not in this world. This would be it. Then we see the mental hospital that Norman was taken to, and at the same mental hospital, there is a kid there named Alex. A little boy who is there because he has no family. His mother died when he was an infant, and he was raised by his abusive stepfather, who also owned a dry cleaners. In fact, one of the ways he used to abuse him was to lock him inside of a dryer all the time. Until one day, apparently, his stepdad was cleaning out one of the dryers, and Alex got the idea to push him in and lock him in.
Pressed a button and dry cleaned him.
Gotta say, sounds like a little bit of tit for tat there. Not only that, but Alex has one friend, a dead stuffed bird. And because of the fact that he knows somebody else who liked to stuff birds, the doctor decides that he should meet Norman Bates. I'm questioning this doctor's credentials. Then we fast forward 27 years and we find out that Alex and Norman actually had a really good friendship. Almost like a father-son relationship. Grown-up Alex is played by Bud Cort, who was in a lot of stuff, especially around the 80s. A lot of people thought he was going to be a big star, but this kind of was his biggest claim to fame. But now, it's been 27 years, he's all grown up, and it turns out that Norman Bates has died. And Alex is giving the eulogy at Norman's funeral.
To the world, he was a murderer, but to me, he was my friend.
And in between being my friend, he got out, and then was driven crazy by a girl and her mother, family of my last victim that got me arrested, and they drove me crazy to the point that I kind of went on a killing spree. Not just them, but a woman who claimed to be my mother, and it turned out it was my aunt. Oh wait, that's right, this movie ignores both the second and third movie. Dr. Goodman, who's played by Robert Picardo, comes to Alex after the funeral and tells him he's going to be released. But Alex is afraid of that.
And remember, it's what Norman always wanted for you.
Yeah, but Norman also wanted to watch women shower in hopes that his mother wouldn't kill them. Then at Norman's will reading, it turns out he left something to Alex.
The Bates Motel.
Oh, that's why they call this movie that. Alex is nervous about taking this. Probably because it wasn't exactly a gold mine.
This was Norman's way of telling you, it's time to go.
Okay, but stay out of the swamp. Alex arrives in Fairville, but he doesn't know where the Bates Motel is, so he's literally asking everybody. And by literally, I mean...
I'm new here. Next car, please.
Now I want chicken. But at the chicken place was a Henry Watson, who knows where the Bates Motel is, and he offers to drive him there. But seriously, both of you were there, neither one of you is going to get some chicken? Henry tells him the reason he knows where the Bates Motel is because he used to work there doing odd jobs for Mrs. Bates. And that now people say the motel is haunted! You know, by her ghost. So apparently this is going to be a ghost story. Whatever, something to make this interesting.
Well, there it is. Bates Motel.
So enjoy your new dusty as hell home. Unlike the actual second movie, it's clear nobody's been keeping the motel up. So your best bet is to sell the property and get a better job. I think the chicken place is hired. So Alex spends his first night in cabin 1, where in spirit I'm pretty sure Norman watched him shower. The next morning he goes up to the main house and starts looking around, and wouldn't you know it? It smells like old lady! Alex now goes to the bank to get a loan. The banker, Tom Fuller, is played by Greg Henry. And Alex tells Tom that not only does he want to fix up the motel, he wants to add a cafe.
This is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I mean, Tom, he's from the nut house. Tom explains to Alex that it's really not worth much as a motel. It's worth more to just tear it down and build onto it. However, he insists on making it a motel, so he says, get an architect, get a contractor, come back with an estimate, and we'll see what we can do for you. So Alex goes home, and he has a guest. Ah! The chicken! Should have ordered extra crispy. As it turns out,
I've been living here for 3 months now.
That's Willie, played by Lori Petty. This is before she was famous. You know, for that whole 5 minutes. Alex informs her that he is the new owner.
Now what?
Well, now either go get a tank or join a women's baseball team. Turns out she's going to do both of those things. They have dinner, and she offers to stay and help him with reopening this motel. But he insists that he feels like he needs to do this by himself.
Don't you see that I got places I could go, things to do?
And she's got a chicken suit. That's orange. And someday she'll realize it's the new black.
I'll be gone in the morning.
The next day, as Alex is meeting with the architect, he is trying to convince Alex to tear it all down and instead of a small motel, build a huge hotel.
You're the architect.
Yeah, but you're the customer.
She didn't leave. She even convinces Alex to go find a new architect.
We could do this better ourselves.
And after this, she goes surfing. So since he needs a contractor, he goes and finds Henry, who is holed up in his home because his landlord sold the property and they want him out and he's refusing to leave. Alex is offering to not only pay him for construction work, but also once the motel is up and running, make him an employee and he can even live there.
I need someone that I can trust.
Well, he definitely looks trustworthy. So Henry agrees, and they get to work. What happened?
Well, Mrs. Bates is trying to tell us something.
Actually, he hit an underground cable. So if she's trying to tell you anything, it's off her satellite. Okay, I get that they're ignoring the second and third movie, but this is supposed to be a sequel to the first, and they found her body at the end of the first one. The police even come and examine and say, yeah, it's her.
None other than the little woman of the house herself, Mrs. Gloria Bates.
Okay, no, it's not. Her name is Norma Bates. In every other sequel, she's Norma Bates. Had a kid named Norman. When you wrote this movie, did you even watch the first one? Later, Willie has made a decision.
I've decided to be the chef in the new cafe.
She even made a meatloaf.
It's good.
But his lack of enthusiasm has made her mad.
And stop looking at me like I'm nuts!
Dude, trust me. The woman's freaking out over nothing. If you want her to calm down, just ask, are you on your period? Trust me, it'll calm her right down. The next day, Willie leaves a note for Alex explaining that she is very sorry, and because of how sorry she is leaving. Alex goes to her work to try to convince her to come back.
Beat it!
Okay, Alex, you tried, but now it's time to free Willie. Now I've referenced every movie of hers worth referencing. But as it turns out...
What are you, crazy or something? Get away from me!
It's not Willie. Although, I will say with the hairdo, I had to do a double take. Alex goes back to the motel.
It's Jake Bates.
Norman's father. You really didn't watch the first movie, did you? You just heard of it and went like, oh, I can make a movie out of this. Later, Alex is seeing even more things to suggest that this place is haunted. He runs upstairs to check it out, sees nothing, but when he looks out the window... Norman's back! No, he's not. That would have actually made this movie a little bit more interesting. So he runs! Who? What? Huh?
Larry!
Okay, be happy in a minute. There's a dead guy over there. Of course, he takes Willie to where he saw the dead guy laying and there's nothing there. But now Alex is freaking out because he's not sure if this place is haunted or if he is just crazy. I personally like to think it's both. After things settle down a bit, Alex tells Willie that he needs her and he wants her to come back.
Oh, Alex, I could just kiss you.
Oh, that's okay, Tank Girl. Now we see a montage of them finishing the motel. So now everyone is happy. They are gonna open for business. And I'm happy because, you know, with the motel being finished, the movie's almost over, right? No, we still got over 30 minutes. But a few hours later, they've been open for business. They have yet to have one customer, and Alex is already getting nervous because he has to make his first payment by the 25th.
The 25th is tomorrow.
Well, it might be okay. It's just been a few hours. Get a couple of customers. Maybe you could scrounge up a couple $100.
$10,000.
I don't think you're going to make it, dude. Willie asks, why would you agree to that kind of a deal?
I have the strangest feeling that things are going to be okay.
Yes, it will all be okay. As soon as the end credits start. But then they get their first customer.
I'd like a room, something quiet, away from the action.
Okay, so for a one-night stay, the rate is $10,000. At the little cafe, Willie and Henry are talking, and she brings up the construction worker who found Mr. Bates.
Well, wasn't he the guy who was trying to get the men to quit and all that?
Well, I mean, he did dig up a dead dude, which wasn't the first dead person they dug up. I'd probably want to leave too. Heck, I wouldn't want to work on this as soon as I realized that this was a crappy sequel. But then fortune smiles as they get swarmed with customers. Still don't think enough to make up $10,000, but hey, who knows? Maybe you'll luck out and they'll all go just order a ton of meatloaf. But then we go to the first customer, Sally, who earlier called herself Barbara, so we're going to go ahead and call her Barbara, because that's how she's casted. And we see that she has been writing suicide notes. So another story has started, even though I'm still not even quite sure what the first story was. I just know it didn't end. And also, Alex, I hope you made her pay in advance. But just as Barbara is about to end it all...
Oh, excuse me. What are you doing here?
It's her room. Now I have a question. Why do you look like you're from the 50s? This was set 27 years after the first one, 1960, so this is 1987. The girl who just came from the sock hop, who is casted as Sally, finally realizes that she got the room wrong.
Hey, this is really gorgeous.
Okay, I could swear in the 50s they had better manners than this. 50s Sally convinces Barbara Sally to go with her to the other rooms where they're having a party, which is obviously a 50s party, so I guess that explains why she looks like that. And she introduces Barbara to a hunk, a boy named Tony, played by Jason Bateman. This is back when Jason Bateman was kind of struggling in his career. Like, he had made a name for himself as a child actor in Little House on the Prairie and Silver Spoons, things like that. But this was before his career resurgence in the late 90s, when he was struggling to get parts like Teen Wolf 2. But at the moment, this was the closest thing they had to an actual celebrity in their movie. But Barbara and Tony hit it off, have a little dance, and Tony tries to get himself a little kiss.
You're only a boy.
Yeah, not the graduate. Of course, he storms off, and she goes to talk to him, and explains that she's very sorry. She is too old for him, and she did let it go too far because he made her feel like she was in high school again.
What's so bad about that?
Well, Tony, for some of us, high school sucked. She tries to comfort him by telling him that he's got his whole life ahead of him.
I only wish that was true.
Yeah, I know, I get it too, but let's just play along. Eventually they hug and he goes back to the party. But now Barbara goes back to her room.
Still thinking about doing it, huh?
Oh, who are you? What are you doing? Yeah, we get it. The girl, Sally, tells Barbara that she knows that her real name is also Sally, and that she is there for a reason.
Because you really do have your whole life in front of you.
50 Sally is telling Barbara Sally that she committed suicide in the 50s. This explains why she looks like she's in the 50s. And the fact that she's there to commit suicide is why everyone else is there.
And we've come here to tell you that it stinks.
Message! She takes her outside and it turns out, yes, the entire party is full of young adults who killed themselves mostly in the 50s. In fact, through their testimonials, only one of them says 60s. So apparently in the 70s, there was no suicide. But again, testimonials, they all tell them who they are and what year they committed suicide, including Tony.
He took my life Christmas Eve, 1959.
So the moral of this story, people, is if you're going to let a kid open a present on Christmas Eve, let him open a good one. Now that Barbara, Sally, whatever, has the message, she goes back and decides not to end it all, and all the 50s kids leave. Hopefully after you paid your bill, because I'm sure Alex needs the money. But hey, at least we can get back to the main story. Even though I still haven't figured out what that is. Alright, Alex is being haunted. He sees Mrs. Bates in the window and he runs in. And when he gets inside, he finally sees Mrs. Bates.
Leave my home!
Yeah, that looks real. But now Henry to the rescue!
There's your ghost, Alex.
And they tell us what we figured out a while ago. Oh, I mean, hold on again. Oh my god, that's not the real ghost of Norma. Gloria Bates. Oh. Of course, they figure out that Tom was just trying to scare them all off the property so the bank could get it and they could own it, foreclose on it, and sell it and make huge, huge money. And he also says that there is no way that the police are ever going to believe them. But now...
You want my land!
It's not over. Tom pleads with the real ghost not to kill him. He was just trying to scare Alex off. And now...
Thanks for your confession.
Seriously, dude, she was wearing the same mask that you were. Willie tells Tom that if he doesn't give Alex a better deal, she's going to take that to the sheriff.
What do you say?
I say I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling teens. Young adults and old guy. What? That should have been what he said. We're going to do a Scooby-Doo ending, but at least this movie is just about done.
And it makes you feel glad to be alive.
I will be in about 2 minutes.
Oh, by the way, if you ever need a room, come on by.
So there you have it. That's the second attempt at a sequel, I guess, for the Psycho series, Bates Motel. This movie was boring as crap. It was a made-for-television movie that did not get very well received at all, for very good reason. The movie was boring, not to mention a lot of people watching it were like, what's the story? What's going on? It also just threw people. Like, you saw a name like Bates Motel. We all know Bates Motel from Psycho, so we figured it was going to be a horror movie of some sort, and it wasn't. Honestly, don't know what it was. It classifies it as a horror suspense, but it's not. It's not scary at all. There's no suspense. The only suspense is when are the end credits coming. It's more of like a drama mixed with a back-to-school special and wrapped up with a Scooby-Doo movie. Like, it's just all over the place and dumb. A lot of people said that Anthony Perkins boycotted this movie, but a couple years later at a convention, he made it clear he did not boycott the film. He admitted that he watched it, but did say, quote, just terrible. I don't think anybody really disagreed with him. Like I said, this movie is supposed to be a direct sequel to Psycho, not the fourth sequel. We would actually get that a few years later. In fact, it actually does completely ignore the second and third movie. It's not canon with any of those. But then again, when you think about it, the whole fact that they found Mr. Bates' body, that was never something in question. And the fact that they called her Gloria makes me go, it's not really even canon with the first movie. What makes this make sense, though, is when you find out that this 90-minute movie was basically supposed to be the pilot for a show that was supposed to go along. They were hoping that this would get interest into them making a show with these actors called Bates Motel, where they would get into these kinds of adventures and messages week to week. So now that made it make a little bit more sense, but it was still terrible. It didn't work out, because again, it didn't really get any critical reviews, but the audience really didn't like it. It wouldn't be till 20 years later that they finally did come out with a Bates Motel series, which was actually pretty popular. It lasted about 5 seasons. But that one was giving people what they would expect out of a show called Bates Motel, where it was Norman Bates killing people. Now, granted, I don't think that show is very canon with the movies either, but at least it was what you would expect it was. It was an actual horror show. But even still, I'm glad it didn't get picked up as a show because I can't imagine it would have been that interesting of a show because it wasn't horror. It was all over the place. What would you have been doing week to week? Like, what hijinks would they have been getting into? Alex builds a pool and it turns out to be haunted. I mean, what were you going to do? Have more feel-good after-school style messages? Like, in this one they did what was very clearly like an after-school special on anti-suicide. Next episode, what? Anti-drugs? Anti-divorce? What? Or were you going to have it go the other route it seemed to go to in this movie where every week there's another haunting that Alex and Willie investigate, and it turns out it's not really haunted. It's somebody trying to scare people, but thanks to them and their trusty sidekick dog, they uncovered the mystery. Only interesting side note I really got about this is Kurt Paul, who played Norman Bates in this movie, which honestly we only saw in pictures, was actually the stunt double for Anthony Perkins in the second and third Psycho movie, and in what came out later, the fourth Psycho movie, he plays Raymond Lynette, another mother killer that's being interviewed. This movie did eventually get released on DVD by itself and as part of an anthology with all four of the other Psycho movies. And I would say the anthology is the only reason to ever buy this movie. If you're giving me the good movies with this one mixed in, fine, I'll take it. Because ultimately this movie's not that good. Right now, if you don't want to spend money on it, you can find it on YouTube. But honestly, the only way I can recommend you check out the movie Bates Motel is if you're just such a fan of the Psycho movies like I was, that you really just want to see it just to say you saw it. But don't get your hopes up and bring a pillow, because it is very boring. So there you have it, that's my movie review this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post videos, and leave a comment that I can respond to in my next comment corner. If you saw this TV movie, Bates Motel, tell me what you thought of it. Love you guys.